The Summit of Masonic Philosophy, 10 Principles of the 33rd Degree. The Honorary Summit. The 33rd degree of the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite, known as the Sovereign Grand Inspector General, represents the pinnacle of Masonic philosophy and service. Unlike earlier degrees which are earned through ritual progression, this degree is an honorary distinction bestowed upon members who have demonstrated exceptional dedication to the craft and humanity. It is not a seat of power in a political sense, but a recognition of a life lived in accordance with profound ethical standards. While there are no statutory laws in a legalistic sense, the degree is governed by deeply entrenched philosophical principles, unwritten laws of conduct and conscience, that guide the recipient in their continued service to the world. The first law, Ordo ab Chao, order from chaos. The primary maxim of the 33rd degree, and indeed the Scottish Rite itself, is Ordo ab Chao, order out of chaos. This law is not merely administrative, it is an internal command for the Mason to organize the chaotic elements of their own nature. It demands that the initiate subdue their unregulated passions, ignorance, and prejudices, transmuting the chaos of the raw human condition into a disciplined, coherent character. It teaches that before one can bring order to society, one must first establish an unshakable order within the mind and soul. The second law, Deus Mumque Jus, God and my right. The motto distinct to the 33rd degree is Deus Mumque Jus, meaning God and my right. This principle asserts the sovereignty of the individual conscience in its relationship with the divine. It suggests that a human being's ultimate accountability is to God alone, bypassing earthly intermediaries or dogmatic tyrannies. This law empowers the Mason to stand firm in their moral convictions, trusting in their divine right to seek truth and exercise free will, provided their actions align with the supreme moral law of the Creator. The third law, the equilibrium of forces. A central theme in the writings of Albert Pike, a pivotal figure in the Scottish Rite, is the law of equilibrium. This principle posits that wisdom lies in the balance between opposing forces: severity and mercy, authority and liberty, intellect and emotion. The 33rd degree Mason understands that excess in any direction, even in virtue, can lead to ruin. Thus, the law requires a conscious centering of the self, ensuring that power is always regulated by wisdom and justice is always tempered with charity. The fourth law, the universality of truth, tolerance. The 33rd degree creates a synthesis of the lessons learned in the preceding degrees, paramount among them being religious and intellectual tolerance. This law dictates that no single creed possesses the totality of truth. The Mason is charged to look for the light scattered among all civilizations and faiths. By recognizing the common denominator of morality in all great systems of belief, the Inspector General practices a radical universality, viewing all men as brothers regardless of the specific name they use for the divine. The fifth law, the primacy of service. The distinction of the 33rd degree is strictly honorary, given for service to the right or to humanity. Therefore, the law of service is absolute. The higher one rises, the more one must serve. The white cap of the 33rd degree is not a crown of authority, but a symbol of humility and sacrifice. This law mandates that the recipient's knowledge and influence must be directed outward for the amelioration of human suffering and the enlightenment of the community, rather than for personal aggrandizement. The sixth law, the victory of spirit over matter. Throughout the Scottish Rite degrees, the Mason is taught to rise above the material plane. By the 33rd degree, this becomes a finalized law of being, the dominance of the spiritual over the material. This does not mean rejecting the physical world, but refusing to be enslaved by material appetites, such as greed, lust, or gluttony. The law insists that the royal secret is the realization that the human intellect and spirit are destined to rule the body, not serve it. The seventh law, liberty of conscience. This law is political as well as spiritual. The Scottish Rite has historically been a defender of human liberty, specifically the freedom of the mind. The 33rd degree Mason is sworn to oppose tyranny in all its forms, whether it be the tyranny of a despot over the body or the tyranny of ignorance over the mind. The law of liberty of conscience requires the Mason to protect the right of free thought and free speech for all people, believing that truth can only emerge in an atmosphere of freedom. The eighth law, the sanctity of the pledge honor, is the currency of the 33rd degree. The law of the pledge dictates that a promise made is a bond that transcends life itself. In an age where words are often cheap, the Inspector General is held to an archaic and rigorous standard of fidelity. This law ensures that the Mason's word is inviolable, reinforcing the idea that the stability of society rests on the trustworthiness of its leaders and citizens. The ninth law, the infinite nature of light. Even at the summit of the rite, the Mason is taught that they have not yet reached the end of knowledge. The law of infinite light suggests that light, truth, knowledge, is a journey, not a destination. The 33rd degree is not a graduation where learning ceases. Rather, it is a commencement of a deeper, more profound study of the mysteries of the universe. The law forbids complacency, urging the Mason to remain a lifelong student of philosophy, science, and nature. The 10th law, legacy and posterity. The final principle is the obligation to the future. The law of legacy commands the Mason to build not for themselves but for those who will follow. Whether it is preserving the rituals, mentoring younger Masons, or contributing to the stability of the nation, the 33rd degree Mason acts as a custodian of tradition and civilization. They realize that they are a link in an eternal chain, responsible for passing the torch of enlightenment brighter than they received it. Synthesis, the internal temple. When these laws are combined, they construct an internal temple within the man. The principles of equilibrium, order, and spirit create a psychological fortress that is impervious to the vicissitudes of fortune. The 33rd degree Mason, having internalized these laws, becomes a man of stability. He is not swayed by popular opinion or fleeting emotions, but stands on the solid foundation of his own sovereign conscience, validated by his connection to the divine. Synthesis, the external citizen. Externally, these laws shape the ideal citizen. The requirements of tolerance, service, and liberty transform the Mason into an active agent of social health. He becomes a peacemaker in times of strife and a voice of reason in times of fanaticism. The 33rd degree, therefore, is not a retreat into mysticism, but a call to action in the public square, urging the application of Masonic virtues to the complex problems of civil society. The burden of the crown. It is often said in Masonic circles that the 33rd degree is a heavy burden. The laws described above are exacting. They allow for no days off from moral rectitude. The title of Sovereign Grand Inspector General carries the weight of expectation. The expectation that the holder will be a paragon of virtue and a beacon of light. To violate these laws after receiving such an honor is considered a profound betrayal, making the adherence to these principles a matter of supreme gravity. The living law. In the end, the laws of the third degree are not written in penal codes but are inscribed on the hearts of those who earn this distinction. From Ordo of Chao to the law of legacy, these 10 principles form a comprehensive philosophy of life. They challenge the individual to become a sovereign master of themselves, a servant to humanity, and a guardian of the sacred flame of liberty and truth. The 33rd degree is, ultimately, a recognition that the Mason has made these laws the governing constitution of their soul.